Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Center. I'm Katharina.
And I'm Marco. We're so excited to have you with us today for another fun conversation.
Now, Marco, imagine waking up one day and realizing there's no phone, no internet, no TV, nothing, just you and the world around you.
Oh well, that would be a big change. No scrolling, no messages, no watching videos. I think a lot of people would find that really difficult.
Exactly. But it also makes you wonder, could a day without technology actually be a good thing? Could it help us focus more on real life, talk to people more, or even enjoy simple things like reading or going outside?
That's a great question today. We're going to talk about what life would be like without technology, how people in the past lived without it, and whether we could survive a whole day unplugged.
It's going to be an interesting discussion, so stay with us till the end. Let's get started.
So, Katharina, let's start with a simple question. Have you ever spent an entire day without using your phone or any kind of technology?
I think the last time that happened was when I went on a trip to the mountains. There was no signal, no Wi-Fi, and honestly, at first, it felt strange. But after a while, it was actually really refreshing.
That sounds amazing. So, what did you do instead?
Well, I spent more time outside, enjoyed nature, had real conversations without distractions, and just felt more present in the moment. It made me realize how much time we actually spend looking at screens instead of enjoying real life.
That's true. Sometimes we don't even notice how much we rely on technology. I think if we all tried a no-tech day, we'd be surprised by how different life feels.
Exactly. But at the same time, technology is such a big part of our lives now. Do you think people could actually survive a full day without it?
That's a tough question. I think some people could. But for others, especially those who work online or use technology for their jobs, it would be really hard.
Right. It's not just for fun. We depend on it for work, school, communication, and even daily tasks like checking the weather or setting an alarm.
But imagine going back in time, maybe 50 or 100 years ago, when there were no smartphones, no internet. People still had full, happy lives.
That's so interesting to think about. People spent more time outside. They wrote letters instead of sending messages, and they had to meet in person to talk. It makes me wonder, do you think they were happier without technology?
I think in some ways, yes. They had stronger face-to-face relationships, and they weren't constantly distracted. But at the same time, technology has also made life easier and more connected.
That's true. So maybe the best thing to do is to find a balance, not completely remove technology, but also not depend on it too much.
Exactly. Maybe we can all try a no-tech challenge where we spend one day without using our phones or computers and see how it feels.
That's a great idea. We can encourage our listeners to try it too and share their experience in the comments.
Yes. Let us know, do you think you could go a whole day without technology? What would you do instead? You know, thinking about this, I wonder what would be the hardest part for most people about going a full day without technology.
That's a good question. I think for some, it would be not being able to talk to their friends instantly. We're so used to texting and calling that it might feel really lonely without it.
Yeah, it's crazy how much we rely on instant messaging. Even when we're in the same house, people text each other instead of just talking.
Right? It's like we've forgotten how to have real conversations without a screen in front of us. What about you, Marco? What would be the hardest part for you?
Oh, for me, probably not being able to check the news or watch videos. I like to stay updated, and I learn a lot from online content. Without it, I'd feel kind of disconnected from the world.
That makes sense. News updates, entertainment, even learning, everything is online now. Without it, we'd have to go back to newspapers, books, and face-to-face conversations.
Speaking of books, do you think people would read more if technology wasn't so distracting?
I think so. A lot of people say they love reading, but they don't have time. But really, they spend hours on their phones instead.
Yeah. That's true. I've caught myself scrolling for way longer than I planned. But if there were no phones, I might actually finish all the books I've started.
Same here. I think without technology, we'd all have more time for things we say we want to do, like reading, exercising, or just relaxing without distractions.
But on the other hand, technology also saves us a lot of time. Imagine cooking without a recipe video or finding a place without Google Maps.
Oh wow, that would be a real challenge. I think we've all become so used to searching for things instantly that we forget how people used to figure things out on their own.
Exactly. Before the internet, people had to ask for directions, write things down, and actually remember information instead of just looking it up every time.
That's true, and they had to rely on their memory more. Now, we just save everything on our phone's contacts, notes, reminders. Without them, I'd probably forget half the things I need to do.
Same here. I don't even remember phone numbers anymore. Everything is stored on my phone. Do you think that's a bad thing?
Maybe a little. It's good that technology makes things easier, but it's also making us a little lazy when it comes to remembering things or figuring things out on our own.
Yeah, and I think that's why a tech-free day could be a great challenge. It would force us to use our brains more and experience life differently.
Absolutely. Plus, it could also help with mental health. A lot of studies show that too much screen time increases stress and anxiety.
Oh, I totally believe that. Social media, notifications, and emails can be overwhelming. Without them, people might actually feel more relaxed.
Exactly. So maybe taking a break from technology isn't just about testing ourselves, it might actually help us feel happier and less stressed.
That's a really good point. Maybe instead of a full no-tech day, people could start with just a few hours, like turning off their phones for an evening.
That's a great idea. Maybe we could even suggest different ways to have fun without using technology.
Yes, there are so many things to do: reading, playing board games, going for a walk, talking with family, drawing, writing. The list goes on.
Exactly. And honestly, I think a lot of people would be surprised at how much they enjoy it.
You know, the more we talk about this, the more I realize how much we take technology for granted. It's like we don't even notice how much we rely on it every day.
Exactly. It's become so normal that we don't even question it. Imagine waking up one day and all technology just disappears. What do you think would happen?
Well, that's a crazy thought. I think, at first, people would panic. No internet, no social media, no online shopping. People wouldn't know what to do.
Definitely. Businesses would struggle, communication would be so much harder, and even simple things like checking the time would be a challenge for some people.
Oh, that's true. A lot of people don't even wear watches anymore because they just check their phones. I guess we'd have to go back to old school clocks.
And think about transportation. Without GPS, how would people find their way? We've become so dependent on Maps apps that most of us wouldn't even know how to read a paper map anymore.
That's actually a great point. I remember trying to read a paper map once, and it was so confusing. Maybe we should all learn some basic navigation skills just in case.
Yes, and it's not just maps. What about cooking? So many people rely on YouTube tutorials and recipe apps. Without them, we'd have to use old-fashioned cookbooks. Or just guess.
I can already imagine the disaster in the kitchen. Wait, how much flour was I supposed to add again?
Or worse, burning everything because we don't know how long to cook it without a timer on our phone.
This really makes you think. Technology is amazing, but maybe we should practice doing things without it sometimes, just to be prepared.
I agree. Like learning to memorize important phone numbers instead of relying on our contacts list.
Or practicing how to do simple calculations without a calculator. Imagine going to a store and not being able to figure out the total cost without an app.
Oh, that's a good one. I remember people used to do quick math in their heads all the time. Now, we just take out our phones even for the simplest calculations.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of basic skills because of convenience. But at the same time, technology has also given us so many opportunities.
True. We can learn new things, connect with people all over the world, and even do jobs that wouldn't be possible without the internet.
Right, so, I guess the real question is, how do we find a balance? How do we enjoy the benefits of technology without becoming completely dependent on it?
That's a great question. Maybe we should set limits, like having tech-free hours during the day.
Oh, I like that. Maybe no phones during meals or before bedtime. That way, we can focus on real-life interactions and get better sleep.
Yes, I've heard that screen time before bed actually makes it harder to sleep, so reducing it could have real benefits.
And what about social media? A lot of people spend hours scrolling every day without even realizing it.
That's so true. Maybe setting a time limit for social media apps could help. Instead of wasting hours, people could use that time for something more productive.
Like reading, exercising, or even just relaxing without staring at a screen.
Exactly. So maybe the key isn't to completely remove technology, but to use it in a smarter way.
I love that idea. Being mindful about when and how we use technology instead of letting it control us.
Yes, and taking small steps like a tech-free evening or a no-phone rule at dinner could make a big difference over time.
I agree. I think we should challenge our listeners to try a small change and see how it affects their day. You know, thinking about this more, I wonder, if people actually tried a tech-free challenge, how long do you think they could last?
Good question. I think it depends on the person. Some people might only last a few hours before they start feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can see that, especially if they're used to checking their phones all the time. It might feel weird at first, like something is missing.
Exactly, but I think after a while, they might actually enjoy it. Once they stop worrying about notifications, they might feel more relaxed.
Oh, that's true. I've heard that constantly checking our phones can make us more anxious. So a break might actually help people feel better.
Definitely. And they might notice things they usually ignore, like how nice it is to just sit outside and enjoy nature.
That's a great point. When was the last time we just sat somewhere without looking at a screen? It's rare these days.
Right? Even when people go for a walk, they're often listening to something or checking their phones. It's like we always need to be connected.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because in trying to stay connected online, we sometimes disconnect from the world around us.
Exactly. I think if people put their phones away for a while, they'd have more meaningful conversations with family and friends.
That's so true. Imagine having dinner with friends and actually talking the whole time without anyone checking their phone.
That sounds so nice. No distractions, just enjoying the moment. It's a simple idea, but it can make a big difference.
Yeah, and I think that's something we've forgotten how to just be present. We're always thinking about what's next, instead of enjoying what's happening right now.
I love that. Being present is so important. And without constant notifications, it's much easier to focus and enjoy life.
Exactly. So maybe instead of saying let's quit technology, we should say, let's use it in a way that helps us, not controls us.
Yes, that's the real goal. Technology isn't bad, it's just about finding the right balance.
And that balance looks different for everyone. Some people might need to cut back on social media, while others might need to spend less time on video games or emails.
Right. The key is to notice where technology is helping and where it's just taking up time without adding value.
That's a great way to put it. If something is useful and makes life better, keep it. But if it's just a habit that wastes time, maybe it's time for a change.
Exactly. And I think small changes can lead to big results, like starting with one tech-free hour a day.
Oh, I like that. Just 1 hour without screens, reading, talking, or just relaxing. That sounds doable.
Yes, and once people try it, they might realize they enjoy it more than they expected.
That's true. Maybe they'll even want to extend it, like a whole evening without screens or even a full day.
Who knows? Maybe they'll end up making it a habit and feeling happier because of it.
Wow, what a conversation. We've really explored how technology affects our daily lives and how we might find a better balance with it.
Yes, and I think the most important thing we realized is that technology itself isn't bad, it's all about how we use it.
Exactly. It can be an amazing tool when used wisely, but if we're not careful, it can also take over our lives without us even noticing.
So, what's the solution? We don't need to completely remove technology, but we should be more mindful about how we use it.
That's a great word, mindful. Instead of using our phones or computers just out of habit, we should ask ourselves, is this really adding value to my life?
Yes, And if the answer is no, maybe that's a sign to take a break or use that time for something more meaningful.
So, for our listeners, let's go over some practical tips on how to have a healthier relationship with technology.
Yes. And if the answer is no, maybe that's a sign to take a break or use that time for something more meaningful.
So, for our listeners, let's go over some practical tips on how to have a healthier relationship with technology.
Great idea! Let's start with something simple. Set time limits for social media. Instead of mindlessly scrolling for hours, try setting a daily limit.
Oh, I like that one. And here's another. Have tech-free zones. Maybe no phones at the dinner table or no screens 1 hour before bed.
That's a good one. And what about notifications? Turning off unnecessary notifications can help people stay focused and reduce distractions.
Yes, we don't need to check our phones every time it makes a sound. We can decide when to check messages instead of letting notifications control our time.
Another great tip is to replace screen time with real-life activities. Instead of watching videos all evening, maybe go for a walk, read a book, or have a conversation with a friend.
That's such an important one. Sometimes, just stepping away from a screen can refresh our minds and help us feel more connected to the world around us.
And here's something fun: try a tech-free challenge. Pick a time, maybe an afternoon or even a whole day, and avoid all unnecessary technology. See how it feels.
Oh, I love that idea. It could be a great way to discover what we miss and what we actually don't need as much as we thought.
Exactly. And the most important thing to remember is that small changes can make a big difference. We don't have to give up technology completely, but using it wisely can improve our daily lives.
That's a great message. So, to all our listeners, we challenge you to try one of these tips this week. See how it affects your focus, your mood, and your daily routine.
Yes, and let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear your experiences and thoughts. You can share them in the comments or send us a message.
And if you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. Maybe they'll be inspired to make some changes, too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back soon with another fun and thought-provoking discussion.
Until next time, stay mindful, stay balanced, and take some time to unplug and enjoy life.